All right, today I'm going to rank these novellas. And this is not the ranking. I just stacked them so that they would look nice in the thumbnail, presumably. Who knows? These 6 are nominated for the HUGOs, and we will know the winner September 4th-ish, I think. And this has already been declared the winner of the Nebula, and it was not nominated for the HUGO. And I think part of that is that Nebula and HUGO readers or nominators are just like a different pool of people, and they read different things. I don't know. I don't think about awards a lot. I think that they measure something. I don't think it ever measures what is the best, but it does take a group of people's opinions and filters it down into something that is kind of interesting to select books from. So that's what I did here. I will say something that's been, I will say it's an issue and something that hopefully will be addressed in the future, but every book that was nominated for a HUGO novella position was a Tor.com release. And they're a great publisher. I mean, I think I basically have a whole stack of books here that are Tor.com books. But I think it's good to have many different imprints and publishers represented because everyone has its own vibe, and I don't know. I just feel like only one publisher dominating a category is not good for the art. You want to have the art coming from a lot of different places. But I have read this entire stack, and I've ranked them. And how have I ranked them? It's not dissimilar to how I rate books, which I have a video on. It's very not precise. There was not a precise rubric into me staring at these 7 books after I finished them and rearrange them, because what was nice is since I had all the physical ones, I could like move them around tactily and figure out what felt right when I made my like 7 ranking system. And it's a combination of consumability and enjoyment, entertainment while I read that. That is a part of the pie. Thematic resonance, which is kind of tied to that, but can be a little different because sometimes thematic resonance doesn't necessarily come with the I can't put this down it factor of reading. Does this make sense in the form of a novella? Should it have been a short story? Should it have been a novel? Or was this the perfect amount of time and space to look at this story? I think that's important for me, at least, when I look at novellas. And then there's this nebulous thing that I definitely think about more for awards than I do for like my own personal reading, and that is what's its uniqueness, its innovation? What is making it different than other books that I pick up that would make it worth maybe an award, an accolade, or something like that? That one is probably not as important to me as entertainment or enjoyment, just because I do think with awards of all types, we sometimes don't give that enough credit. I think to make a compulsively consumable, entertaining piece of art is not as easy as people make it out to be. And so I don't lessen that if it doesn't have these like other things. But I think as you see my list, it'll make sense, maybe. I don't know. But starting at number 7, I'm just going to put images even though I have the books because I think that a lot of these will be glossy and glary. But we have Fireheart Tigers. So this is my number 7. And I think this should have been longer. I think this should have been a novel because a lot of my complaints for it are the brevity of the novella length. So this is about a young princess who we are told was sent away as like a hostage sort of alliance situation when she was 12 and was caught in a fire. And then we see her in present day. She's, I think, 20 or 18, and she's in charge of negotiating with that kingdom. Her former lover returns, and there are these fires starting up around her, and she still has PTSD from the fire she was in. And the story takes off from there. And just a lot of the relationships jump together so quickly. And I think part of that was just the brevity of this novella length. I actually really liked being with this really quietly strong princess. I actually thought she was a really interesting character. But I didn't get to spend a lot of time with her, and there was just so many quick, intuitive leaps that this character would make that I'm like, wait, I don't actually know why this is urgent right now. Why is this so urgent that you go talk to this person about this thing? Like, you have this intuition as a character that I don't have as a reader, and then just also, like I said, just things moved really quickly, but then were also sometimes really slow, so the pacing was a little inconsistent for me. So this was just my least favorite overall. I think the rest of these I give 4 to 4.5 stars, and this was my 3.5 star novella, so it was pretty easy to put this in the number 7 slot. I am interested in more works by this author. I know they've written quite a few, because I did like the writing style. I just didn't like the plotting and pacing and the fact that this was constricted to 99 pages, like even in novella space. Could have been a 180-page book or something like that. Like, I just wanted more, especially because thematically, we are looking at self-identity and place and how you belong, and there were a lot of heavy themes in here that I felt like we saw the progression of this character and these themes happening really quickly, like even in time. Like, I think this only spans a couple days, maybe a couple weeks, maybe. So that one, easily number 7. Number 6 and number 5 were hard. They are neck and neck. I just want you guys to know that. But I decided number 6 is the Across the Green Grass Field by Shauna McGuire. And yes, I started here. So everyone, it is great. You can start here. This truly does not need you to know anything else in this whole series. I just picked it up and I read it and I understood exactly what was happening. No exposition needed about this whole series of the Wayward Children. You meet Reagan, who is intersex, and she discovers she's intersex and entrusts that information to a friend she shouldn't have, and this leads her to find her door, because if you don't know, this whole series is about children finding their door to their perfect worlds or recovering from leaving their perfect worlds. This is about Reagan finding her perfect world and living there. And she finds a door, and she gets to be in a land that has a lot of hoof-like creatures, and she loves horses, so she gets to live there for a while. I think this is another case where I actually had a pretty good time. I listened to the audiobook. It was very good company. This was a very good company book. It served the purpose of I was preparing dinner, I was cleaning the house, I was walking to work. This kept me company. I had a good time. I think it has really wholesome themes of belonging and everything like that, but it didn't really fulfill me. Like, I don't think I'll be thinking about it in a couple weeks or a month. Like, even now, having finished it like 2 or 3 days ago, I struggle to figure out what to say about it. I mean, I have some complaints in that, again, this could have been a novel, like, could have been a 300-page novel or something like that, because there's a lot of time jumps, and I think the time jumps are where I would actually want to see things happen. So it's like a taste. You get a taste of this cozy experience, which, if that's what you want, that is serviceable. So I think there is an argument to be made that this is the perfect length for this book, because sometimes maybe you don't want to spend time in those quiet moments of relationship building. But that's something I really like, and I think the most interesting parts of this story are how Reagan learns about friendship and what it means to have a real friend versus a fake friend, and having a family that supports her, and I don't know, a lot of it was interpersonal relationships that I was drawn to in this story, and the development of those relationships are what are done off-page in these huge time jumps. And the plot itself, did not care about. I knew there had to be a plot. A plot has to exist, but the stakes of the situation, I didn't care about. Like I said, I cared about her finding her perfect world and learning to live in it and getting to know these people and forming relationships, and that's the part that gets cut short because it's a novella length. And because it uses time jumps. So I think that's why it's here. It was very good company, though, and I'm not turned away from wanting to read the rest of this series. I think I will do the audiobook because I do think it's going to fill that nice spot of I need something that I can feel like I've accomplished and finished in a couple days, and I need company while I'm doing chores, and because it doesn't require a lot of brain to consume, I guess I would say. And then the next one I think is unpopular opinion, probably. Again, I rated all of these, besides the first one I mentioned, like 4.5 stars. This is A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. I know, it's a darling. Everyone loves this book. Everyone's like, it's a warm hug or whatever. I think that's like the kiss of death for me when I hear hype, is like someone's like, it's a warm hug of a book. I'm just like, then it's not going to work for me. Because for some reason, I like wholesome things. I like happy things. But for whatever makes the general public say mass hug of a book means it will probably be too sweet for me or something. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case here. I do think this is one that I really like the world. The world is really interesting. I think the world building is done spectacularly well. I think this is meant to be a novella. I think in the space that there is, we have so much incredibly well done, well woven in world building. I think that's spectacular. I like our main character. I love that our main character is non-binary. I do like the themes that this is exploring. I think where this fell short for me is, to my recollection, there is no real plot, which is fine. I didn't go into this expecting a plot, but there's nothing plot-wise that I'm holding on to. And the themes are about finding purpose, which probably would have been fantastic for 18-year-old me, because 18-year-old me, 22-year-old me was very much like, oh my gosh, purpose. Almost 30-year-old me, I don't need a purpose. I don't have a purpose, and I don't want a purpose, and I don't need a purpose. I think I am content with just finding ways to make enough money to survive and do whatever I want to do on those days whenever I want to. I don't feel a need for that. And I recognize that some people do feel that need, and there's nothing wrong with that. I used to feel that way, and I have currently let it go. So I think the themes were not resonating with me that much. I did love the cultural exchange between our two main characters, though. That was also really nice and interesting. I just think this is one of those things where, because I wasn't thematically in the headspace for it, and because it was truly just a book to read with a cup of tea. Like, I loved my experience reading this. I read this while my friend Judith was hosting reading sprints, and I read it in an entire morning, so it wasn't hard for me to read in a morning, consumable. I don't really have anything that I've taken away from it other than I maybe have a slightly unpopular opinion of this book, in that I don't rate it 5 stars, and I'm not rushing to go get the sequel, if that makes sense. Next up is for sure. Well, maybe it's not for sure. I don't know. I know a lot of people don't like the sequel to this novella. And this is the novella I almost forgot. And this is A Splintered. I am struggling to say this tongue twister of a name. This is one that I forgot I needed to read. I got the physical copy just to like have for the thumbnail because I could easily get it from the library. But I listened to the audiobook, and I listened to it on a Saturday that was just like my chill night to myself. Ryan was going out. I wanted to make some pasta. I wanted to relax. So I started it on the way to the store to go get the stuff to make pasta, listened to it while I made the pasta, listened to it while I cleaned up after eating the pasta. I associate this book with spaghetti that I really liked, okay? But it was a thing that I kept finding things to do to listen to. This was a very consumable read. I read one other Alex E. Harrow, and that was The Thousand Doors of January, which I liked but did not love because that one is a more meandering story. This one is way more plot-driven and reminded me a little bit of the nonfiction Disfigured, which is about fairy tale and disabilities, to the point where when you first start this book, it's in first person, I was like wondering if I accidentally started the wrong audiobook because it starts a lot with the main character discussing her chronic illness and her relationship with that and the people around her, and I knew this was also a fairy tale story, Sleeping Beauty, and so I was almost like, am I listening to the right thing? Because there was a lot of overlap. So I was thinking a lot about that nonfiction while consuming this, and I just thought it was a consumable, great time, and I'm really glad it wasn't longer because I think I would have started to be like, get on with it if it was longer. Fairy tales for me should not go longer than like the animated movie length or something like that, because that's about an hour and a half, 2 hours is what I spent consuming this novella with the audiobook. And so if you don't know the premise, we have our main character. I'm blanking on her name. Could be Stephanie. Could be any other name. I really don't know. But she has a chronic illness, and this illness usually is terminal. Normally by the time you're 20 or something, because your body is not able to fold proteins properly, your organs will fail and you die. And she is approaching that day. That is her ticking time bomb, similar to the ticking time bomb of Sleeping Beauty. And her friend hosts a birthday party. She pricks her finger on a thing because Sleeping Beauty is like her favorite fairy tale. And she ends up noticing all the other realms or multiverses where other Sleeping Beauties exist. And she ends up in the realm of one of those and tries to help her get a better ending. And it evolves from there. It has some interesting theming about taking agency when you have an unfair story. I liked it. It was consumable. Do I think it will stick with me? No. But I liked it enough that I was maybe going to read the sequel, but everyone's not saying good things about the sequel, so I'm very nervous because I know the sequel is more about, what's it called? Snow White. That's it, because it's a mirror mended. And honestly, it doesn't feel like a book that requires a sequel, other than the fact of what our character does at the end of the book. But it's not even like a cliffhanger. It's just that, like, yeah, I could see there being a sequel. Like, the door is open, literally, for a sequel, the way the book ends. But I was surprised because I'd had a mixed experience with a novel that I read by this author, and because it didn't really actually sound like my thing, but I think in a novella length and the situation in which I consumed it gives it, like, really fond memories for me. So, that's why it's solidly in the middle of the list. I know ranking it higher than A Psalm for the Wild Built is probably blasphemy, but the rest of the list, I feel pretty confident that I'm pretty good with where I put things. Like, I feel pretty strongly. And number 3 is Elder Race by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This book surprised me because I think if you look at this cover, you think it's a fantasy novella. And it's not. This is a science fiction novella? Question mark? And it's very reminiscent of the type of anthropology themes he puts into Children of Time. Because that's a novel I read by him earlier this year. So we have here the 4th daughter of a noble who is trying to help save the day from this demon that's in the forest, and to do this she's going to go awaken and ask the help of a sorcerer who lives in this tall tower, presumably the tower we see on the cover of this book. And the sorcerer is our other main point of view, and he is not a sorcerer. He is an anthropologist. He is from a different branch of the human race who still has access to technology, and he has been stranded by his team. And he's not supposed to interfere, but when he has interfered, the easiest translation or solution has been sorcerer. And so they go on this quest to figure out, what is this demon? How do we solve it? And I'm not a big quest person, but I did enjoy this, and I think I would have loved it. Like, it could have been a favorite of all time if this platonic like relationship got to develop a bit on page, but in the nature of the sorcerer not wanting to interfere too much, and he has a lot of mental health stuff that he's trying to manage both medicinally and just through therapy-ish, like just handling his emotions. He doesn't let himself come close to the other character, and the character is just in awe of him, the other main character. And so they don't get to form a really good bond with each other, although their interpersonal relationships are funny because there's just this translation thing. He'll be trying to say one thing, and then his translator converts it essentially into like medieval speech, and it's really interesting what gets lost in translation. So if you are someone who loves language as a focus in your story and what would happen in this scenario, I think it's expertly done. That's one of the reasons it's so high on this list, is like, I think he really accomplishes that really well for my tastes. I was really intrigued by the premise of it, and the actual thing was really creepy. I was actually really stressed. I did not know what was going to happen. Like, the actual demon thing that they have to figure out is quite terrifying. And so I was really engaged. I kind of wish that this was a movie. I thought it would have been really fun. And so it's definitely, I think, the longest on this list, and I think it needed to be that long, especially because if we didn't get the internal thoughts of both of our characters, things would have felt very surface level, I feel. And nothing felt surface level about this. Everything felt very intentional. I mean, the most surface level part is we're going on a stereotypical quest to solve a problem. But I think that's the point, is that this is meant to be like a D&D quest fantasy, but with a twist. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty novel and well executed. And like, if suddenly they just had like better banter between the main characters, because I'm just like a sucker for banter, could have been a 5-star read. These last two were really close. The number 1 and 2 slot are like, they're neck and neck, and if I had read either one on a different day, who knows? But my number 2 is The Past is Red by Catherine M. Valente. I still think about this book. I think sometimes there are certain climate sci-fi that just resonate with me and stick with me, and I just really appreciate what they do, and that's this one. The Past is Red is, I don't know how far future Earth, but there is no land anymore. Like, the tip of the Himalaya mountains might exist. And our main character, I forget her name. Let me find it on the back of the book. She's awesome. Tetley lives on Garbage Town with a bunch of people. And Garbage Town is what is left after humanity has kind of sorted this garbage pile, which, if you don't know, in the Pacific Ocean, there is like a pile of garbage that is just floating in the ocean. It is terrifying. But this is one that's solid enough that people can live on it. What's left of the human race on Earth lives on garbage towns like this, or on boats that are kind of traveling around. And so that could be really bleak. And I'm not going to say this is a happy book, but Tetley is so full of optimistic and love of her home, it's infectious. And I think this is so high up because of Tetley. She is my favorite character that I've read of all of the characters in these novellas. She will stick with me. And she is treated cruelly from the day she is born. There is no reason for her to have as much hope or optimism that she does. There is no reason for her to fight for her land and her community the way that she does, but she does. Because she was basically the more sickly of a twin that is born, so they really weren't putting any resources into her. And then I won't say what, but I think the first part is like a short story that was published. But she basically does something that makes the community hate her, okay? And you know that right away, because she basically, I think the first line is, she's the most hated, or something like that. Let's find out. My name is Tetley Obednego, and I'm the most hated girl in Garbage Town. Yeah, it's the first line. But what's funny is then part 2, she says she's the most beloved girl in Garbage Town. And I just love her perspective. And I think her perspective is refreshing. Her perspective is, Garbage Town is beautiful. It is awesome. It is helping us survive. We are living. We are here. And she's not wanting for something different. She's not yearning for the past. She is happy where she is. Also, this book very much makes fun of current day humans, us, a lot, and I appreciate it. Like, I'm here for it. And it also felt like a fairy tale. So all of this is climate, future, sci-fi, but it has, like, I felt like the structural narrative of the isolated fairy tale sort of thing. I don't know if I'm describing that well, but this is like our isolated protagonist, and you're kind of hearing a folklore, like, legend of her. How did she get to be in the position she's in, and what tasks did she go on along the way? How did we get here is the framing of this. And I really like it. And the twists that there are, it's going to stick with me. And I definitely need to read more by Catherine M. Valente. I really love the cover. And for climate sci-fi can be dreadfully depressing. And I think this one does not sacrifice the need to be like, climate is important, environment's important, we need to take care of what we have, we cannot, like, I think it still has that messaging without being like, if we don't do stuff, everything's bad. Like, this is everything bad, but like, with hope? I don't know, it's gonna stick with me. I have a lot of thoughts about that one. And the last one I'll talk about is the one that I finished most recently, and it's number 1. So is it recency bias? I don't know, but I do think it's the one that I'm just like, I think I liked Reading the Past is Red more, but I think I like this one more. And they're both climate sci-fi. So again, like I said, it depends on the day, but that is the Lisa Frank cover one. And what can we offer you tonight? And this is why I think it's a problem that it was only Tor.com books that were nominated, because I think there's a lot of hidden gems out there that are not being read, because Tor.com, I think, is just the one that's most likely to be in the bookstore. It's the most accessible, I think, of a lot of novella publishing companies. But regardless, this was stunning. Like, the cover, like, when we talk about efficiency of world building, it's efficient. Now, the language of this, it's definitely a book that I would need to reread, because it is very dense, lyrical, beautiful language that I just know I didn't get everything, but it was evoking an atmosphere and a visual for me that I was just entranced by while I was in it. The premise of this one is our main character, Jewel. We're in a far-off hellscape future where essentially there really is no economy anymore. There are rich, but aren't even like jobs for people, really. Like, we are in a truly bad state of humanity, and the water levels are really high and disgusting. Like, pollution in the water is disgusting. And so our main character actually has a job working as a courtesan at this house. So most of the story takes place at this house. And it's a great job to have because you get food and you're safe, and everyone has these wristbands that if you don't have a job, you could be culled. So it's very dystopian, future, stressful. And all of this is not exposition dumped to you. These are things that I learned slowly by consuming the story. And our main character's best friend dies and comes back to life as kind of a zombie. This is not explained well. If you want well-explained, like, magic stuff or sci-fi stuff, that's not what this book's doing. The book gives you a premise, and then you must go with it, because it's here to answer a question after it sets up its thing. And that is, this woman is killed by one of her clients and decides to basically become Batman. This felt very much like a really different version of, like, Batman in Gotham, but way more vibrant and dark, and zombie Batman, maybe? I don't know. But it had a vigilante flair to it, which I always love. And Jewel is struggling with the whole, but I am safe here, and if she does that, that puts me at risk. Like, there's, she struggles with being a coward a lot of this story. So we have kind of, I would say, a non-hero protagonist. I wouldn't say she's the villain, but she's definitely not your typical protagonist. And through her eyes, we see this world, and we see what's playing out, and I really liked it. Like, I really liked it. It was one of those moments where I finished it, and I put it down, and I went, wow. And I don't always do that. Like, truly, I really don't. And I was just like, that was a story. That was something. And I think it was one of those things where it was obviously a metaphor, but also not a metaphor. I think it did a lot of really great storytelling. And for sure, of all these things I read, was the most original to me. A lot of the others, like the earlier ones, I don't know, they just felt like a long story made short or something like that. Like, this truly was an artistic, entertaining experience that I don't get to consume all the time. And it's not going to be for everyone, but I do agree with the Nebula that this should have won. And then for the HUGO, I guess I want The Past is Red to win. Those are my thoughts. And maybe it's just because climate sci-fi has been, like, my thing this year. Maybe that's why. And like I said, if I read The Past is Red on a different day, maybe that one would have hedged it out. The number 1 and 2 are just like, they're neck and neck. What's interesting is I don't think The Past is Red was nominated for the Nebula. So, who knows? But those are my rankings and are my general thoughts on all of these novellas. I am thinking about doing a ranking for the novels because I only have 3 to read. I just don't know when I'm going to read them. It's a lot easier to slip in novellas than it is full-length novels, especially when one of those novels is Audible exclusive for their audiobook. I'm talking about Project Hail Mary, and I don't want to pay for that, so I'll have to figure it out. But that's this video. Let me know if you've read any of these. What were your thoughts on them? If you had to pick your winner, which one would it be if you have read some of these, even if you only read a handful? What would you pick as your winner? If you want to leave an emoji, oh, there's like a really cool fish on this cover, and I would love maybe a fish emoji. I think that'd be great because, you know, this is my winner. I truly need to find a copy of this. I don't know how hard or easy it is to get physical copies of this book because it's the publisher is Neon Hemlock. So, but stunning cover. Really loved the book, and I definitely need to reread it because, like I said, it's dense and lyrical, and I don't know. It needs to be enjoyed. I don't think I read it too fast, but I'm nervous that I did, if that makes sense. And also, it requires a soundtrack. I don't know. There's a lot about this book that evoked a lot in me. Anyways, that's this video. I'm getting rambly. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.